Hey everyone, and welcome to the Entrepreneur Pod Guide, created to share the collective wisdom of everyday entrepreneurs who are bringing their visions to life, the ones in the arena. We've all read the same billionaire books, but what about the wisdom from the entrepreneur next door? The ones building, learning, failing forward, and figuring it out one step at a time. I'm your host, Britt Rodriguez, and every episode we're bringing you honest conversations, fresh insights, and lessons from entrepreneurs just like you. This is your place to learn, grow, and get inspired by your fellow business owners who are actually out there building businesses today, not just dreaming about them. So, let's get started. Hey everybody, welcome back. In this episode, I'm sitting down with Scott Callan, CEO of the Qomo Institute, a global training organization focused on upskilling professionals across leadership, operations, finance, and AI. But what makes Scott different is his philosophy. He believes most people operate at about 95% of what's expected, and only a very small percentage actually go beyond, creating real value, real growth, and real opportunities. We talk about what it actually means to operate in that top 5%, why relationships matter more than tactics, and how to position yourself to grow in a world that's rapidly changing with AI. If you're building a business, growing your career, or just trying to stand out in a crowded space, this one's going to hit. All right, let's get into it. Scott, welcome to the podcast. I am so happy to have you join us. Thank you.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Well, let's get kicked off here. Scott, tell us about yourself and tell us what you are working on right now with the Qomo Institute.
Yeah, so we began our company back in 2010, so we've been around for quite a while now. And when I began, we were mostly consultant with a little bit of training on the side. And then at the end of 2023, the board and we decided to shift our company. We did a company branding change from Cal Strat Consulting to Qomo Institute. And that shift was really to reflect what we saw in the market, which is more emphasis on the training and the upskilling of business professionals throughout the world. And we do a little bit of consulting on the side.
Nice. Now, so you bring up the word consulting, and I love it because you have an interesting take on a difference between consulting and being a practitioner. Can you
Yeah.
kind of jump into that a little bit and explain the difference between the two and how you approach that?
So the differences that I want to highlight are the differences between a career consultant versus a practitioner. And one of the philosophies that we have within Qomo Institute is that we only hire practitioners to be our world-class instructors. And the reason for that is we found, and I have many friends in the consulting business, so I do not mean this as a negative per se, but in our field, we find that career consultants have not been there, done that. They tend to be people that just follow the template, follow the blueprint, push the buttons. And there's a lack of criticality there, a lack of criticality in terms of strategy, in terms of philosophy, and in terms of results. And so within our firm, we look for subject matter experts who are world-class teachers. And the first peg that has to be satisfied is that been there, done that philosophy. And so in our field, we only hire world-class practitioners, and those are our instructors that you'll find in our class.
I love that. I was an educator myself. It's really important to definitely have the lived experience. Like that helps you share and teach and really truly educate versus just extracting theory from one piece and then giving it to the next. Like it's way different and like way more authentic and genuine and well-rounded if you've lived it yourself.
Exactly.
Right.
And I'm sure you know that there's a magic moment in the classroom where one of your delegates, one of your students will raise their hand and ask a real world question. Hey, I have this challenge, or I'm facing this problem, or I have this new kind of project thing that I've never experienced before. And there's a magic that happens in that classroom when, as an instructor, as a teacher, as a trainer, you can pull from your own past experience and say, okay, I realize this is new to you, but it's not new. Let me walk you through what to expect. And that magic is something that you get from being a practitioner, somebody that's been there, done that. So yes.
Yeah, and it's certainly a magical moment in the in the classroom for sure. And now like I think what's kind of cool about Como is like you are certainly bringing education to this time in the world. Like you have multiple approaches. Technology is wonderful, but it's not everything. But you're utilizing technology, but you're still combining the human aspect, right? So you've got the way you educate virtually and in person. Why was that important to you all to keep both, to make sure that you provide multiple ways to educate and work with people?
It's really convenience for our marketplace, right? It's convenience for our customers. And so we have a philosophy within Como I that we want to do travel destinations. And so, for instance, we have a trip to Malaysia coming up later this month. And within that, you afford the business person, man or woman, to be able to get a little vacation, make the educational event a little bit fun, come to class and spend our 7, 8, 9 hours of focused training, and then be able to leave and go enjoy the touristy things. Perhaps go there a few days early or stay a few days after class, so that you can get the touristy thing as well. And so tremendous opportunity there. With regard to the world that we live in today, it is absolutely a marvelous time to be a business person.
Mm.
And I'm one of those people, and we have a tremendous AI expert on staff who teaches our technology classes, several of our technology classes. And he's the first one to tell you, and he has convinced me. And now I will share I having been convinced, I'll share my philosophy with all of your audience. AI is not going to replace humans.
Right.
It will replace certain functionality that certain jobs, certain careers within the business community. But
Yes.
it provides a tremendous opportunity for us to upskill our own talents and abilities, upskill our own knowledge, and upskill our own personal brand. And really, in today's world, that's what it amounts to. I've been mentoring a former student of mine from class, maybe 3 years ago. He was in my class, and I've been mentoring him. And I won't mention the country, but he's a citizen of a foreign country. And he's a younger kid in his early to late 20s. And being able to have conversations with him and being able to mentor him and walk him through the challenges of not only the buttons that we push in our jobs every single day, but also the landmine that the corporate landscape provides. Um, he called me just 2 months ago, about 2, 3 months ago, and he says, "Hey Scott, I want to share some exciting news with you. I just got promoted." And I said, "Awesome, awesome. What happened to your boss? Now that you took your boss's job?" And he says, "No, Scott, I didn't get my boss's job. I got my boss's job."
Wow.
And now that individual, that manager that was an impediment to his brand, to his career, being able to walk this young professional through some of the challenges that the corporate environment provided him, and to be able to hear back after a period of time from him to say, "Hey, I got my personal brand on track."
Mm.
And the CEO for my organization recognized that. And he recognized that my manager was an impediment to some of the value propositioning that we had for the organization. And now I'm my boss's boss.
That's awesome.
It is. And
Yeah.
that's why Como Institute's around. That's my personal mission. And it's a wonderful time as we see technology changing the business community. And a lot of us are afraid that, oh, humans are going to be replaced. They are within certain careers, certain jobs, to be sure. But now's the time to find a skill set and change your philosophy, the way you approach business, and upskill your brand. And it's a wonderful time to be alive.
I love that, and I that's the approach I wish everybody would take, and like, you can be cautious, that's fine, but, being afraid is, it's just there have been so many times in history where there's, a new, uh, piece of technology introduced. It can even be something like a refrigerator. I remember there's, like, this scene in, Downton Abbey. I don't know if you ever saw it, but, like, they're down in the kitchens and the refrigerator comes in or at one point, I know they get electricity and they're like, "Oh, no, like, I don't trust that, like, oh gosh, why are we bringing that in? The candles work just fine." Or, like, "The salt chest still preserves the food." It's so funny, and it's so funny now looking back, we're, like, giggling at them, but, um, it only made life better, and now it's here, we couldn't live without electricity now, um, and I think it's the same, like, with AI. I try to explain to people, I'm like, "It's like a calculator." A really amazing high-end calculator. Like, back in the day, you used to have to write these things down and even go through pages and pages before you arrived at your answer. Well, now you can just type it in and have it in
Right.
2 seconds. Do you tell me you really wanna go back to, like, the old
Right.
paper and writing things down with less accuracy, took more of your time? I don't think so. Like, and, even schools, they were like, "Oh, calculator. Oh, they're not really learning if they're using that." In every classroom, in every place in America, you're gonna find calculators these days.
Right.
And so but it never, like, does the, like, apocalyptic thing people think it's gonna do. It's just a pivot and a change.
Yeah.
And like you said, it gives you other skills to work on,
Mhm.
other things to grow, to like, I mean, before we had a calculator, we were probably all very limited in the amount of math we would achieve. But with a calculator, you can certainly go above and beyond, and I think we got a lot further, even in high school, than we would have gotten without it. And it's the same with AI. It may take away the more mundane, repetitive tasks, and that's a wonderful thing. Like, then pivot, use that more like free time you have to then focus on like a higher skill, right? And so that's awesome. I love that you're teaching people that. Now, want to jump back into Como a little bit about um specifically, like, so your lessons, your training, your teaching, you're helping people. What exactly do you do that people would need to go to Como to learn more? What strengths do you bring to the classroom? How do you help these entrepreneurs and business owners? How do you help people in the classroom?
So in Qomo Institute, we teach within 5 business verticals. And again, as I mentioned, with regard to the subject matter practitioners, those are the people that you'll find as our instructors, as our trainers in our classrooms. We offer the modalities of live virtual training as well as live classroom training. And again, we do the destination travel philosophy. We want to make it an event, not just, show up to class or you show up to work one day and instead of going to your office, you go to the conference room and there's a teacher there. We certainly do those as well on request, but that's not really our core corporate philosophy. And so one of the things that I'd love to emphasize for your audience to know about Como Institute is not only the travel destination and the subject matter practitioners, but again, these are individuals that have been there and done that so that you have the ability in a live interaction, either virtual or face to face, have the ability to ask somebody this brand new thing. And again, as I stated earlier, it may be new to you, but it's not new. And so that would be the magic that I think that differentiates our training institute from others.
Yeah, and is it, like, all scope of business that people can learn about with you all?
It is. So it's within the 5 business verticals. And quickly, the 5 business verticals are procurement and contracting, international finance, banking and accounting, sales and operations, leadership, and then, of course, that wonderful bucket called technology and AI.
Nice. And so that it's like a full front to end business,
Yes,
training that you can have. And I love that it's personalized. So you're not just gonna go up there with your preconceived, ideas of what the business might need, or, you gave this same spiel to 10 other companies. No, it's gonna be like, "Hey, this is what we're struggling with. This is something that happened to me yesterday or this morning." And then you're gonna
correct.
have someone very skilled to give some feedback to, right? Yeah,
Exactly.
I love that. Okay, you talk about a 5% club culture. I
Yes.
would love to kinda dig into that. So it's people who go beyond the job description to create value. Could you speak about that a little bit for the entrepreneur and business owner and how that can apply to them?
Yeah. So actually, this is an employee perspective
Right.
study that was done years ago. And so you just heard me be a little bit critical of the consulting world. especially the big, let's say the Big Ten. I won't pick on the Big Four. Let's say the Big Ten consulting firms in the world. Um, but there was one of them that did a wonderful job for a survey many years ago. And I remember reading the survey, and it was an international survey with a large pool of respondents. So it was very scientific, and I'm not, Mr. Science, but it was good statistical numbers. And so I read this survey, and it was very in depth, very detailed. But there was one uh, data set that I hooked into. And basically, what it said was it came to the conclusion that 95% of us, as human workers, 95% of us do our jobs or less.
Wow.
And I thought, wow, that's a huge number. But the way my mind works is I flipped it. And I said, what that means is that there's 5% of us, and I include myself in this basket. There's 5% of us that do more than our jobs. And it took me several years to truly understand what that concept meant. So
Mm.
if I can quickly walk you through just a 90-second story of where I began as a professional myself.
Yeah, please.
Um, when I was a younger professional, I always looked and wanted my boss's job. A, they made more money. B, they had a bigger title, more authority. And yeah, as a alpha kind of dominant kind of let's get it done kind of man in business. I wanted that authority. I wanted the additional pay, but I also came to the conclusion that my boss had an easy job. My job was hard, but my boss's job was easy. So I wanted it, and I chased after it, and I was very successful at it. And got promoted through the ranks over the years, working for this organization and that organization. And there was one particular organization where one year I received four promotions that year. So I was very successful at chasing my boss's job. I wanted to be the easiest decision any executive would ever make.
Mm.
We have a vacancy. What are we going to do? Well, Scott's already doing the work. Okay, let's put Scott in position. And then I'm sitting in my office one day and I get a phone call from outside my organization, and I pick it up and it said, "Hi, Scott, my name is so and so. You don't know me, but I heard some positive things about you. And we have an opportunity within my organization, and I'd love to be able to talk to you about it, see if there's a mutual interest." And I hung up the phone after making a dinner appointment with that CEO. And I asked myself, I'm chasing my boss's job, and that seems to be working. But here's an individual that I know nothing about. I'm not chasing his position, and yet he's coming after me. And then years later, I read this survey about the 95% of us who do our jobs or less. And again, I flipped it to say there's a 5% club where people like myself who do more than our jobs. And it suddenly occurred to me I was successful at getting promoted. I was successful at upskilling my brand, not because I was chasing, but because I was attracting.
Mm.
When you make the conscious decision that you're going to be a member of that 5% club, you rise above the 95%. And when you rise above the masses, people are going to notice.
Wow.
And so the 5% club is really about doing more than what's expected, which is by definition, the very definition of delivering value, benefit beyond cost, right?
Yeah.
And then having the ability to attract because you rise above the masses. And I stopped chasing. And now I get the wonderful blessing, the wonderful luxury of being able to travel the world, being able to offer opportunities to other subject matter practitioners to travel the world and teach within their own respective skill sets, within their own wheelhouses of expertise on various topics to business people from America, from Canada, from Mexico, from Latin America, from Europe, from the Middle East, from the Far East. And it's a wonderful opportunity. And I wish that I had known that when I was a 20-year-old kid.
Yeah.
It took me a few years to discover it. but it's really about attracting attention. And how you do that is by doing more and achieving more and delivering value. See, for most of us, we show up to work every day and we push the buttons that we're taught to push, that we're paid to push, right? And so if you push the buttons and the company pays you to push those buttons, there's no value delivered.
Mm,
You're simply achieving what you're being paid to achieve.
right.
You're part of the 95%. But when you deliver more than what's expected, 5% club.
Nice. I love
Congratulations,
that.
team member.
Yeah, and I think, like, I love how it connects to employees and some people listening, like, lots of the entrepreneurs listening might still be an employee, and that's, they're doing both things, right? That's a lot of people's journey. They're working 9 to 5 while also building their company, and so I think that's a great tip, and then I also just see those tips you can still have even if you're a full-time entrepreneur. It's that 5% providing that much more value than your competitor, right?
Yeah.
Going that extra mile, doing that little bit extra that gets you in that 5% club as well. At the end of the day, really what it's going to do is attract. It's going to attract those clients to you. It's going to attract those connections, those opportunities as well. So I love that. I love that and how that can, apply to entrepreneurs as well in every walk of their journey.
So from a 5% club perspective, it allows you to be that younger professional that I talked about earlier who got promoted to become his boss's boss,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And by the way, if I can just conclude my story,
Yeah.
when I got promoted and I took my boss's job, I don't know what happened, but yesterday when my boss had it, the job was easy. But today, now that I have it, it's not so easy, right? So don't be fooled to think that your boss has an easy job. I
Yeah.
trust you. He and she, they don't.
Yes, and the same with the entrepreneurial life, like, okay, you outbeat the competition, right? You're that, top 5%. They didn't have it easier than you probably now. You got more clients,
Right.
like,
Ah,
it's, the grass is always greener, right? And, it rarely is. Like, it can be more fun, but there's always challenges. There's always, the ups and downs no matter where you are. So, great lesson all the way around. Today's episode is brought to you by our guest Scott Callan's company, Qomo Institute. If you want to grow in today's business world, you can't rely on theory anymore. You need real world skills taught by people who have actually done the work. And that's exactly what Qomo Institute is built for. Instead of career consultants teaching from templates, Qomo brings in world class practitioners, people who've actually been there and done that, so you can learn how business really works in the real world. They offer training across leadership, sales, operations, finance, and AI, both virtually and in person, including global destination experiences. Because professional growth shouldn't just be another checkbox, it should actually move your career forward. If you're ready to upskill, stand out, and operate at a higher level, visit qomoi.com. That's QOMOI.com to learn more. So I have a question about entrepreneurs in general. And so I'm sure you see a lot of common mistakes that entrepreneurs make in their training and development and their culture efforts. Um, like, what are some of those mistakes, or even just one? What's one mistake you see a lot of entrepreneurs do in those areas in their business? And then, something that you might suggest they do instead.
yeah. So I've been saying this for decades. I've hired, I don't know, thousands of individuals within my career. Unfortunately, I've terminated probably 100-ish over the years. And ultimately, and this is more popular today, so I don't know that this will be news breaking, but I've been saying it for many years before it became popular, which is don't hire for the skill sets,
Mm.
right? Hire for the value system. And it is this 5% club mentality that I'm talking about. And so for me as a business owner, when I look for subject matter practitioners, not only do they have to have the practical experience in the field upon which we'll be teaching or in which we'll be teaching, but they also need to have this mentality, this burning desire, this mission statement that they want to share their education, share their knowledge with other professionals. to make the profession better, to bring the professional reputation and again, whatever vertical, to a higher level. And so it's really about, I'm looking for members of the 5% club
Mm.
to be on my staff. And so that goes from our administrative assistant in our various offices, all the way up to my chief operating officer, members on our board, et cetera. We're looking for individuals that want to make the organization better, whatever that may look like. I remember many years ago, and this was back before Como, when I was an employee for an organization, and I hired an assistant, a number two in charge within my organization, and we had a staff meeting. And in that staff meeting, I said, "Okay, we're going to change some things, and here's one of the ideas." And I had one of my employees raise her hand, and she said, and she didn't use these words, but this is basically what she said: "Scott, that is the stupidest idea I've ever heard."
Oh, no.
And we went back and forth. And I remember at the end of the meeting walking into my office, and right behind me was my brand new assistant. "Oh my God, Mr. Callan, I'm so sorry. I will talk to that employee. That'll never happen again. That was so inappropriate and so insubordinate." And I said, "You will do no such thing. I want to hear that the emperor has no clothes. I want to hear that my ideas are good, bad, whatever it may be. I encourage all of my team members because I only hire 5% club members.
Mm.
That's it. I want people who are vested in the organization's best interest and best results, right?
Yeah.
It's not about me. It's not about my ego. And I have an ego, but it's not about that. It's about making the organization better. And so that was a wonderful teaching moment for my brand new assistant to say, and they're going to criticize you too. And you need to stand there and take it, not to suffer from an egotistical perspective, but rather to make the organization move forward in a improved status. And that's ultimately what we're at.
I
Yeah.
love that. How can you tell, in, like, an interview process or, um, however you do find these, how can you tell that they're in the 5%?
Great question. So tell me about a success. Tell me about a failure, right? And if they give you this pat, rehearsed, HR type response, no thanks.
Mm.
I want to see somebody's eyes light up and say, "Scott," and Lord knows I can share with you dozens of failures in my career. I can share with you a success or two, right? And it is that personal attachment to that success or even that failure that I'm looking for. And so when I have a vacancy and I'm looking to hire somebody on staff, or we're looking to expand our training opportunities, and looking for a new trainer, a subject matter practitioner, I'm looking for somebody who is personally, emotionally vested
Mm.
in that failure story or in that success story. And that'll tell you, that vestment will tell you whether they've decided to become a member of the 5%.
Oh, that's great. That's really helpful. Like, I think that's a fascinating way to look for that. And those 2 questions, simple questions, and just look for the quality of the answer, like what you're getting in that, and that should be an indicator. So, I love that. Now, I love that we've talked about technology, we've talked about, like, the industry, of today. What are some emerging trends or opportunities that you're seeing in, like, the professional development training area that you're excited about?
Yeah. So for us, again, it's an exciting part, exciting time in the world, right?
Yeah.
The training, the ability for people to recognize that business is evolving and different verticals are changing, and the routine clerical administrative types things, everybody has the AI bots that are covering that from a corporate perspective now. So okay, so if I'm in that administration field, where do I now go? So I'll speak to you from my wheelhouse, which is in part contracting. And so there are plenty of AI assistants out there that can help review, write, author, amend, make recommendations for improvement from a contractual perspective. All of the risk mitigations, the roles, responsibilities, all of those, the SLAs and the KPIs, all of those contracting best practices that get built into contracts that used to take professionals like me. There's now AI bots out there in the world, software platforms, applications that will do that for you.
Mm.
One, I know from experience, the AI is not there yet. So you still need humans like me. But at some point in the future, let's make the grand leap and say that, okay, contract professionals will no longer be needed. What does that then mean for the legal world? Does that mean that lawyers are no longer required from a business contracting perspective, et cetera? And where does that take us? And so ultimately, one of the trends that we're seeing in my world is that as AI replaces some of these human skill set perspectives, again, AI is not quite there yet, so humans are still needed, professionals are still needed. But if we make that leap and say ultimately humans will be replaced in the world, where then will the opportunities be? Well, clearly, one of the opportunities will be in the AI space, right? And so you no longer need a contract professional like me to review a contract, but you need somebody on the AI space to make sure that AI is doing what it's supposed to be doing.
Yeah.
And so, from a skill set perspective, if I were a young 20, 21-year-old contracts want to be professional, I would really get into the contract AI space and understand the AI technology and
Right.
develop skills from there. And so really it's nothing more than a shift from this skill set to that skill set. And there's hundreds, if not thousands of examples of different career skills where things are transitioning. So in your space, where is it? What's the future? Right? And how quickly will we get there? And here's the wonderful thing about technology is it's changing so fast. And yet it's very, very slow. I can remember, and I'm a few years older than you, Britt, but I can remember when I was a kid hearing about, oh, by the time I'm a grown up, we're going to have flying cars. We're going to have flying cars. We still don't have flying cars. The
Gosh, I wish we
technology,
did.
uh, everybody has the traffic story, right? In fact, I'm heading out to, at the end of next week, I'm heading out to Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. And I remember the first time years ago I visited Riyadh. I woke up because of the jet lag. I woke up at 3 a.m. and I walked to my hotel window, and there was a 12-lane highway outside my hotel room. 3 a.m. Wall to wall traffic, brake lights, both sides. So traffic is a problem everywhere. So we all agree we'd love to have flying cars.
Yes, we do.
Traffic,
So, I
traffic,
get someday.
right? So technology is very quickly evolving, but it's very slow to be applied.
Mm.
And that's been true, at least in my life.
Yeah, I 100% agree. And I think that's such a great way to approach it. So if you're a little concerned that what you're building in your company or the things that you do might get replaced, well, if it's going to be replaced by AI, yeah, like become that expert on that AI that is doing that thing.
Exactly.
Because there will always need to be people who are running it, right? So I love that. If someone Googled your company right now and landed on your website, would they lean in and want to learn more, or would they quietly say, yikes, and close the tab? Your website is your first impression, and it's either drawing clients in or losing deals right and left. Whether we like it or not, people do still judge books by their covers, and your clients are making decisions about your business before they ever even reach out. At my company, Archer Collaborative, we design high-end strategic websites for businesses whose founders are ready for their online presence to finally align with the quality and professionalism they bring to their clients every day. Our designs are not just pretty. We bring full custom layouts, clear positioning, intentional structure, and smart systems behind the scenes, so your site actually supports your growth. If your business is doing incredible work, but your website still looks like you built it at 11 p.m. 3 years ago, then it's time to let us help you. Visit archercollaborative.com today, and let's build something that is finally worthy of your business and its stellar reputation. Now, so with Como, I think you've already touched on this a little, but I would love to just ask you the question point blank. With Como Institute, what has been the most rewarding part of building that for you so far?
Quite honestly, it's been twofold. Number one, it's been working with our students and our delegates and hearing from former students over the years. I mentioned the one example of an individual that I was mentoring for a few years. There's many such examples. And maybe it's not even a mentoring relationship, but it's just a, hey, Scott, I received a notice from a Emirati, for somebody from the UAE. They're studying in the Washington, D.C. area, came here for their master's degree. And she just reached out and said, hey, Scott, just want to let you know I'm in the States. Now, I'm not in your neighborhood, but I'm here. And if you ever get here, love to, take you out and buy you a coffee. And if I ever get down to your neighborhood, love to see you. So that the personal connections, the continuation of those relationships beyond the classroom, number one. And number two, working with other training institutes. So I have a wonderful client that takes me quite often to the GCC region and to some European destinations as well. And so those are training offerings that's offered not through Qomo Institute, but through our client organizations. And so representing and working with other institutes. Our biggest client in that field is Leoron Institute out of the GCC region. And so I thoroughly enjoy working with that organization and providing the opportunities. I was asked recently from a business colleague of mine, Scott, you have a good, successful, I mean, we're not a multi-billion dollar corporation, but we're fine in our own little corner of the world running Como Institute. Why do you still teach? Why not just simply be the CEO and run the company? And the answer is because I love it. I really do. I enjoy working with, again, the delegates, the students, as well as our client organizations like Leoron throughout the world. And so I love what I do. I'm
Yeah.
blessed in that regard.
That's awesome. And I do think it's the same as like when again, my background's in teaching. And if you like going back to the point where you were, chasing the job of your boss. And sometimes when you do that, yeah, like you could be why don't you just kick back, be the founder, be the owner, be the business leader? Sometimes you still want to get like, sometimes that doesn't always include the thing that one of the things you love the most. So why not
Exactly.
get back in the classroom stay connected to the reason you like to do all this in the first place?
Yeah, I have two children, and my youngest son, and he played every sport, season to season to season, as a youth, as a child growing up. And oh my God, it was just back-breaking, time-breaking. Oh, but what a wonderful experience, right? And there were, especially when he was younger, I would coach various teams of his, baseball, football. Don't think I ever did soccer. I did basketball one season, which was oh, what an experience. I felt sorry for the kids getting me as their coach. But anyway, he's now in college, his junior year in college. And I was talking with him, FaceTiming with him one night, and somebody else came on camera. And the first words out of his mouth were, hey, coach, I'm not a sports coach guy. And yet, for this young kid who now is a young man, remembers me in that capacity.
Mm.
That's what it's all about. It's about those relationships.
I love that,
I love
and that's always the best answer we can get from that question. And then, as beautiful and amazing and inspiring and wonderful as the entrepreneurial journey is, there's always stuff,
it. Yes.
the failures, the hardships, or the mountains we have to climb. So, with Como, thus far, what has been a challenge you've had to overcome or a learning curve for you?
So I'll tell you, I happen to fancy myself again. Then this goes back to the ego I talked about earlier, as a good, solid businessman. Been there, done that for most things, et cetera, et cetera. In 2023, the board of advisors and myself, we decided to change our corporate name, to shift our emphasis to be mostly consultant, a little bit of training, to shift it to be mostly training with a little bit of consulting. And we shifted our name. We changed our brand from Callan Strategic Consulting, Calstrat Consulting, to Como Institute, to reflect this philosophy change, this core functional change of training and upskilling. Um, even though the organization's been around since 2010, when we changed the name in January of 2024, and so it's been now almost 2 years at the end of 2025, um, I was surprised to find that it was almost like starting all over again, even though my company had been 14 years old at that point. It really was like a brand new company by shifting and changing our brand. That was surprising to me. And then I was upset with myself that I was surprised. I shouldn't have been surprised, and yet I was. And so for me, be careful of, and I'm not a branding expert, but be careful of your brand.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely. It can throw it's so funny when you do something like that. So I've helped some companies with branding and it's like, "Oh, it's just a name." And then it goes, "Oh, no, then it's a logo. Then it's everything. Then it's all your email signatures. Then it's all the like it's it's really a big deal." That I think we don't think through all the way sometimes when because it's got so many um, branches and little twists and turns that like all these places that the brand lives. And so making the tiniest tweak, I even think of like a company like Walgreens or something like that when it slightly changes its logo. Oh man, when it does, it's like a huge ordeal, right?
Exactly. Exactly. And so for me, from my perspective, Calstrat Consulting, our logo was a black owl. We have in Como a blue owl. Black to blue, it's fine. And yet it wasn't. Our customers, our clients, our students, they knew Calstrat Consulting. What's Como Institute? What is that? And so again, I shouldn't have been surprised, but I was.
And I think that's so part of the journey too. Like we as much as of an expert as we all feel in our various fields, gosh, we are constant learners, like constant. Um so I have a question, especially since I think it's interesting. It ties to the transition you made potentially. So you made this transition, you made this change. It almost felt like you were starting again. Um, so a lot of people, a lot of the business owners today, they that are listening to this, they might, their biggest thing might be sales. It's, like I love Mark Cuban says, sales cures all. Getting clients like that is so important to people, and that may be their one thing that they're hung up on. So in your building of Como, especially through that transition you did, what has really worked for you on the client acquisition side and connecting with people? What do you recommend for these entrepreneurs trying to build up their client base?
Relationships. I mean, that's ultimately what it comes down to. It comes down to that in life. It comes down to that in business. It comes down to that from every perspective that you can think in this human world that we lived in. Relationships. And so and again, I'm not the world's greatest sales guy. In fact, and let me say this up front, I'm not the smartest guy in the room. I never have been, never will be. But I do have this skill of being able to take something that's complex and make it very, very basic, very, very simple. And I do that out of necessity so that a idiot like me can understand this complex thing, right? And so for me, sales is really just that fundamental funnel IATA model, right? Build an awareness, build an interest, build a desire, and then get your potential customer to take action. So how do you get to that action point? Well, it all starts with awareness. And so literally every individual, every opportunity, you and I are talking here, right? And you're going to whittle this down and you're going to post and publish a podcast as a result of this and this. And I don't know if you have two viewers or 2,000 or 2 million. I know in my world, my social media is abysmal. My social media, more savvy staff people are yelling at me all the time, do more social media, do more social media. And I get it. And they're correct. Uh, but to me, and again, I'm a little older, I'm a little old school, it's those personal relationships. And so the ability to be able to have a conversation, maybe there'll be somebody in your audience that's thinking about going to a training class. And they say, oh, okay, I like maybe what this guy is saying, or I like what the company represents. Let me try this out. And it's been my experience in the training industry specifically that most of us, we sign up for training in order to get a vacation away from work for a week. And so even if we don't go anywhere, if we don't travel anywhere, at least I don't have to go to the office and do work, right? And so there isn't much emphasis based placed upon the trainer, the educator that's going to be in the classroom. Really don't care. And then you get to class, and perhaps you've been in other training sessions, and now you're in this one, and this one has somebody standing at the front teaching you skills in a way that resonates, in a way that connects, right? It's not just a PowerPoint slide with 5 items on the bullet list, and let me read those 5, and we move on to the next. No, here's somebody that just connects. They're different somehow, some way. And then what you find is that student then, when it's time to go back to training later that year, perhaps the following year, they reach out to that trainer to say, what else do you teach? Right? And ultimately in the training industry, we all, as students, we all come to the realization that the teacher, the trainer, the educator matters. It's not just the topic outline on the website and the bullet lists and the deliverables, and it's the human. And so from an entrepreneurial perspective, my advice would simply be this. Every human that you come in contact with is a potential customer. Don't try to sell them on the goods or the services you're trying to sell. Sell them on you. Sell them on your brand. Sell them on your mission. Sell them on the differentiator between you and the others in your field. And that may not yield an immediate sale or an immediate, closed contract. But maybe that individual will never buy from you, but maybe they go back to their corporate office and they say, hey, I met this very handsome, bald headed fella who said, and maybe we should talk to him about it, right? Every relationship matters, every connection, every contact matters. And so just carry yourself in a way that brands yourself. And again, I'm not a branding expert, so maybe that's not the right word for me to use, but it's all about relationships.
It is. At the end of the day, that's all it is. And so make those genuine, authentic relationships. And you're right. And not just, in your business when you're in your business hat.
Yeah,
It's because it can be your neighbor next door, whatever. Like be that especially when you are wearing that business hat, be that genuine, authentic part of yourself.
right.
And like looking for value.
Remember the old movie Miracle on 40, what was it, 42nd Street? The
Miracle
Santa
on
Claus,
34th Street?
34th Street. I Miracle on some street,
Well, on a
something.
street in New York.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly. And gosh, I having a senior moment. I can't remember the name of
I
the movie,
can't
but
either.
anyway, there's a
Great movie
scene.
though.
There's a scene in that movie where a Macy's customer asks Santa Claus for something, and Santa Claus says, "Oh no, we don't have that, or you don't want to buy it here. You want to go across the street to that store and buy it from them." And what happened in that movie is true in business. What do you mean you just sold the competitors' goods? What are you thinking? What are you doing? And yet the result of that was that person went and told all their friends and family, and then the friends and family came to Macy's to buy more because they respected the fact that you weren't trying to sell them something, but rather you were trying to you were trying to solve their problem for them. And if that meant going to the competition, so be it. People respect that. It's about relationships.
Yeah,
It
and,
really,
like, really looking out for their best interest, and sometimes their best interest isn't what you are providing, and that's
right,
fine, right?
right.
Like, so pointing them in the right direction, making sure you really actually care about who you're working with.
Yeah.
That's great, great tip. So question for you with Como, in a year from now, where do you hope to see Como?
Doing exactly what we're doing this year, what we did last year, right? Just with additional growth, additional classes, um, etc. I cannot emphasize, and this sounds so corny, I know it does, but we're on a mission. I want to make the 5% club the 6% club,
Mhm.
the 7% club, the 10% club. I want individuals to understand that this is a club where you don't have to wait for an invitation. I share a story in class, and it's too long perhaps to mention here, but when I first began in procurement many years ago, back before I knew what procurement was, I couldn't even spell procurement. I found myself within the first 2 months of that organization being brand new with the organization, brand new to procurement, just a lowly frontline supervisor where I supervised three other individuals. I found myself in the executive decision making room, making decisions with other executives. Now, notice how I said that. I wasn't an executive. And yet I found myself as a part of that table, sitting at the big boy table with the big boys making big boy decisions, even though I was just a brand new fledgling baby in my career. You don't have to wait for an invitation. You just make the decision that I'm going to be a member. And when you do that, you make your organization better. And when you do that, you rise above the 95% and you attract attention. You want to make sure it's the right kind of attention, which means you need to deliver, right? It doesn't mean you're not going to fail. In fact, statistically speaking, we fail more than we succeed.
Right.
But what it does mean is that you have the best interest, not for your career in mind, not for your ego in mind, not for even your brand in mind, but it's really about making the team better. It's about making the organization better. It's about making the world better. And so for me, where do I want to be from a Como perspective in a year, 5 years from now? I want to be doing what we're doing now more.
Yeah. Great answer. I love that. That's awesome. And that's like the dream. More of
It is.
this, right? And it's the
Exactly.
best answer. More of what I'm doing. I love that.
Yeah.
So now I have Scott because people have different preferences on how they like to learn or engage. So books, podcasts, however they learn. So I have a question I love to ask every guest, and it is, what is a book or a podcast or a social profile? Sounds like you don't really love the socials, so it may not be that for you, and that's fine.
Yeah.
But a book, a podcast, or a social profile that you recommend people to check out.
Yeah. So I am a certified negotiator. I'm a certified international procurement negotiator. I teach through Qomo Institute. I teach negotiation skills. There's a wonderful book that is written called Never Split the Difference
I've heard of this.
on business negotiations. And the wonderful thing about this is that it was written by a negotiations expert. But this is not somebody like me. It's not a business negotiator. This was a former FBI hostage negotiator. And I love the book. I love the philosophies because it's not just about business negotiations. It's not just about life negotiations. It's really a lesson in life. And it really amounts to approaching things and approaching relationships from a non intuitional perspective.
Mm.
And when you read this book and he teaches you his philosophy on negotiations, it really is antithetical and it really is it just anti common sense. It just doesn't make sense to approach it that way. And yet tremendous success with it. And so I love that book. And that's a book that I've actually read 3 or 4 times now. And every time I read it, I highlight something new and I try to implement it in relationships, etc. And I just had an opportunity recently with my son in college. And I won't embarrass him on the details, but at the end of the day, I implemented just by asking a simple question. I implemented one of the philosophies that I learned from this book, and he literally stopped, stared up at the ceiling, and went, huh, yeah, you're right.
Wow. Wow.
And for those of us who are parents, to have a child say, yeah, dad, you're right. Oh my God, that was amazing.
Especially at that age too. Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I've heard great things about that book. That one has been on my list. I need to like, especially after talking to you, I'm renewed passion to read that because I've heard it's excellent. All right, two more questions for you, Scott. One is if you could have leave our viewers or listeners with one message for these entrepreneurs to take away from our chat today, or for take away from your journey, what's the one message you'd like to leave with them?
Actually, two. Number one, make the decision. 5% club, that's me. I'm there. I'm in. How do you get there? Number two, develop your skills, whatever that may be, whatever field you're in, whatever career you're in. And don't just focus in on your career. And I say this to, again, my wheelhouse is in that procurement, contracting, supply chain management space. And I tell all of my procurement professionals, if you just learn procurement, you're missing the much bigger picture. And so my advice would be number one, make the decision to be in the 5% club. Hopefully it becomes a 6% club, 7% club,
Yeah.
right? And number two, develop your skills, your business skills, your human skills, develop your skills.
Yeah, to get there. I love that. I love that. And then so for those who would like to learn more, maybe that is them and they're really interested in Como and they want to develop certain skills to be in that 5%, or they want to learn more from you. They might want to check out what you start putting out on the socials, Scott. How can people who are interested, who want to learn more, who want to work with you, how can they find you?
ComoI.com, QOMOI, Qomo Institute, ComoI.com.
Excellent, and they can reach out there and check it out, and then,
That
keep an
is
eye on the socials. I feel like Scott's gonna be strong-armed by his team into doing it and getting out
my,
there.
my business partner's been hounding me for the last year to hire a social media manager. Maybe we will. Maybe I don't know. I don't know. We'll see.
Well, we'll keep a look at it, and for sure, it will end up on the website at some point anyway, if you do, right? So that there will be connections there, but that's the place to go find him. Scott, thank you so much for sharing all your wisdom and advice with us. We wish you, all the best, more and more of this in this next year with Como Institute. Thank you.
Brett, thank you for inviting me. Thank you for your time. Thank you for this wonderful conversation. And best of luck to you.
Thank,
Best successes.
thanks, Scott. Oh, I so enjoyed this chat with Scott. And if there's one thing to take away from this conversation, it is this. You don't have to wait for permission to stand out. The difference between the 95% and the 5% isn't talent. It's the decision to go beyond what's expected, to create more value, to think differently, to show up in a way people actually remember. And when you do that, opportunities start finding you. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with someone who's building something of their own. And as always, I'm rooting for you. Now go get them.